Anshuman Magazine is the chairman and CEO, India, Southeast Asia, and Middle East and Africa for CB Richard Ellis, a company that was set up in 1906 in San Francisco and has obviously come a long way since then. So CBRE is a commercial real estate company. Anshuman is the co-chair also of the National Committee on Real Estate and Housing for the Confederation of Indian Industry, or CII, and also sits on the CII's National Council. Anshuman, thank you so much for joining me. The objective of our conversation is to get a sense on a few things. One is what's happening in the broad commercial real estate market in India. What are the factors that are influencing its growth and expansion, both from outside in as well as within the country? And within commercial estate, what are the kind of bigger trends that we're seeing? For example, is the retail sector relatively going faster than other sectors like hospitality? How is office leasing growing? What are the new trends post-COVID that we are seeing in 2023 as opposed to maybe even 2022? So this is the broad drift of the conversation. So Anshuman, let me ask you the first broader question. How are you seeing the market for commercial real estate right now?
See, the market for commercial real estate is better than expected. We had a great year as a country in office absorption last year. And I was expecting, with all the global gloom and doom on the economy front, some of the Western markets slowing down, that there will be maybe some impact on India. But we are really fortunate that this year the commercial, the office market has been good. And although there is still 1 quarter left, and a lot of the space take-up happens in the last quarter, but where we are today, I'm hoping that the leasing which will take place by corporates this year would be almost close to what we did last year, which is good news. Of course, we always talk about percentage increases, but coming from COVID times and whatever else is happening, I think this is if we do that, this will be a good year.
Right. So can I then ask you, before we look at international comparisons, what is the total stock that we are at this point looking at in terms of real estate on offer, both for sale as well as for leasing in India?
See, sale is a difficult one because sale is still limited. And I'll come to that a bit later, but is what we closely track is office, and majority of the corporates do not buy. They rent space because most of the companies want to be asset light. Sale is happening at a REIT level now. So I'll talk about that a bit later. But if you look at leasing, last year about 55, 56 million square feet of space was taken up. And this year, again, we're keeping our fingers crossed that if we can be close to that, that itself will be an achievement. Because everywhere else globally, the office market has slowed down for obvious reasons, which we can discuss. So we're hoping, where about 50 million plus will be leased this year. And if that happens, it will be one of the highest leasing or absorption of office space globally. And I think there's a good chance that would happen.
Right. So what's the stock available versus what has been leased at this point of time? Obviously, fresh stock is getting added all the time. But if you were to look at it today, what is the absorption or the utilization versus what is on offer?
See, if we look at the supply you're talking about, every year in India, anywhere from 40 to 45 million square feet of new office space is being added on. And that is, increasing the entire, the office supply we had. There was a time where India's entire office supply was very small. Today, you ask a good question: what is the relevant supply where corporates are taking space? It is close to about 800 million square feet, which, if you look at from one perspective, Tokyo and Greater Tokyo has 1 billion square feet of office space. We, as an entire country of 1.4 billion people, still have 800 million. So one end, if you compare it to even Tokyo and, one city of the Greater Tokyo of a relatively small country, we are still less. But if you take it from other angle, where we were some years back, it's a big jump in space. And a lot of this has come in last 5-7 years. Before that, the market was less than half the size. So that is the supply, and the supply still continues, because what has happened in the market, there are two things why there is still construction happening in the office space. One is, of course, demand. India is still, I would say, number one offshoring destination globally, especially for the US. And that continues and India has got the track record of delivering quality services at a competitive cost. All right. So all the large multinationals, as you know, do their offshoring. What is also added since last few years are the GCCs, which are opening up in India. Again, there's a lot of confidence in India, and they are expanding. So the demand is good. And the other is that for the investors, REIT structure has provided the exit which wasn't there before. So that's why you see large financial institutions like Blackstone, Brookfield, GIC are putting money in the real estate market and the office market, because they can put a REIT structure and get an exit, as well as their professional way of managing the asset. So these two are encouraging the supply of space, and that's why we see 45 million plus square feet of new supply coming in, which is also kind of rare in these times anywhere else globally.
Right, and that the Tokyo contrast is quite interesting, Anshuman. It does put things in perspective in some ways. So let me address a slightly larger trend, and you did mention international markets. The United States, for example, I was just looking at a report which said that projections are quite despondent, to put it mildly, and there's actually some predictions about a crash in commercial real estate in the United States. Now, part of that, I would imagine, is being driven by the way people are working. And how is that different here, and or what are the factors that's driving, let's say, expansion or absorption in India versus other countries?
I think that's a very relevant question, because one of the struggles which corporates are facing, especially in the US, is to get people back to work. And in spite of everything else, the the people are really not coming back to work. I think 2 years of COVID has really changed the whole mindset of employees, as well as expectations, and that certainly is having an impact on the office space. So not only the economies are slowing down, but also employees are not coming back to work, and that is causing the vacancy. Europe, next to it, is slightly better, but again, similarly, depending on different countries, generally speaking, employees are not coming back to work as many as they should. The only area or the globally where there are employees coming back and in some countries at pre-COVID levels, like India, is Asia. So and in India also, leaving some of the exceptions, maybe some IT firms, in most of the corporates, we are back at the pre-COVID levels as far as the occupancy is concerned, right? So no doubt, the office space impact in the West is also because of they're struggling to get people back to work, and the entire lifestyle question, work-life balance, is in the forefront. And we will have to watch the space. Will they be able to improve the occupancy office space going forward? We will know hopefully in next few, by next year, because the question is, will the power is not the right word, but I can't think of another word, shift from employee to employers, or will it still remain with the employees? I think that question will be answered, what I'm saying, by next 6 months, 12 months, because that has quite a bit to do with how the economies are going to fare, especially in the West.
Yeah, and it's an interesting tension point between the two. I mean, in India, for example, more companies are now pushing, particularly the big IT companies are now pushing or inching towards 5-day weeks, having moved to 3-day weeks earlier. So let me come a little out of commercial real estate, as in housing. What are the other sectors that you're tracking, Anshuman? I mean, within overall commercial real estate, and what's let's say, what are the areas where you're seeing either trends or interesting developments?
Well, where there is a lot of activities, industrial and logistics, we're seeing a lot happening in the logistics side. Almost 80, 90 million square feet of new space is expected to come in 3 years. And of course, the trigger point was COVID, which is, it sort of triggered that e-commerce activity. So that was what triggered initially all the supply coming in warehousing and in logistics. And then afterwards, of course, so e-commerce still remains important. However, what is helping the demand also is increase in manufacturing, increase in retail. So, and of course, now the entire supply chain management has changed, especially after COVID. Inventory management has become even to the next level where it has become more efficient, and also deliveries thanks to e-commerce. There are after COVID, people want shorter time of delivery and closer to where the consumption is. So all that has led to logistics being one of the, I would say, fastest growing sectors in real estate right now. And I think this trend will continue for some time, because again, if you look at the size of our country, we are undersupplied. Although in one end you can look at these millions and millions of square feet which is coming in, which is unprecedented, and sometimes people, you may think that that's a lot, but then again, we are compared to our size, we are undersupplied. So I do see that trend continuing for some time in the logistics and industrial sector. The other, and again, the institutions who are big players there now, so that does help in larger investments, and at least money being there for construction, and better quality of delivery of space. The other area, of course, is retail, which, as you know, post COVID struggled during COVID struggled the most. But we have seen a recovery since last year. There is, as aspiration levels uh, increase, as consumption or per capita income is slowly increasing. There is activity in retail. Of course, there are certain segments within retail which are more active than others. For example, F&B, entertainment. There is more activity in other fields, but overall retail is showing activity, and we are seeing. If you think of, I'm just thinking of a trend. There are two trends I can think of on top of my head, and both are important. One is the retailers are expanding to tier 2, tier 3 towns. I think whatever the growth numbers you're seeing in retail right now, one major contributor is that retailers are going to tier 2, tier 3 towns. And the reason, of course, is that, if they need to scale up, they need to do it, go to tier 2 and 3 towns. Second is, income levels have improved in these towns, and aspiration levels, of course. And third is, for retailers, again, they may be lower volume of sales, but there are higher margins because of the cost being less. So that's a clear trend. And again, like I mentioned, the growth we have seen since last year or a couple of years in retail is thanks to that trend of going to tier 2, tier 3 towns. The second, of course, like I said, there are certain segments within retail which are expanding. Sorry, the second is that there are more international players now looking at retail in India than they did in the past, as the consumption improves. And I just thought of one third trend, which is that the Indian retailers are expanding. So in the past, we had not seen the Indian retailers being as aggressive as they are now in expansion. So put all of these three trends put together, there is activity. Although I must say it can be better, but than it is. But still, post COVID, there has been I would say, a good recovery in retail.
Right. Okay. So you talked about two or three things in the context of retail. So first question is, you said international firms who are moving more directly to tier two, and can you give us some examples of of this? And also, you said Indian retail is expanding. So I'm assuming you mean companies like Jio and or Reliance or Jio Retail, and it's them. But or unless you're referring to someone else. So is that, I mean, and
No, no.
what's the pace of that
Reliance,
in
the
at this point of time?
sorry, good. Yeah, so it's not the international retailers are directly going to, sorry, just to think they are here, that they are coming into India, and a lot of them who are based in the tier one
Are
cities
now
are now
moving. Yeah,
looking at tier
yeah.
two cities because they first, of course, picked one place, right? But when you talked about the Indian retailers, no doubt this is Reliance is a big player, Tata is a big player. We see Birla, so all the top corporates are there who are expanding, and then some of the developers who are into retail. There are few of them besides Reliance is one of the biggest. But if you look at some of the other players who have taken franchisees for 4 or 5 different international brands, they're expanding. So they're not technically they're domestic players, but I would say, but technically Indian brands would be people like Reliance and the Tatas and the Birlas of this world who are expanding and there are many others. These are the top RP Goenka, sorry, the Goenka group also. So yeah, these are all expanding in India.
Right. And you mentioned F&B. So were you referring to restaurants specifically? And if so, what sub trends are you seeing? Or does your portfolio also include working with hospitality, as in chains, hotel chains? Because that's an area where we're clearly seeing a lot of investment.
Absolutely. Yes. So no doubt F&B, as the younger generation, likes to go out. Entertainment has become important. Work-life balance. We've seen post-COVID this whole trend of going out for entertainment and food and etc. Has increased. So certainly, the F&B restaurants, microbreweries, beer bars, whatever. All of this food and thing is a big trend, and more you would see from food courts to high-end restaurants to mid-end restaurants. There's a big jump, and as you would notice now, in the several years back, even on a high end, you had to go to five-star hotels. Not the case anymore. There's so many, new restaurants opening, chefs, etc. I've never seen that before. So F&B is certainly one big trend. I also mentioned entertainment, and entertainment is not only multiplexes and movies, but these are gaming parlors, etc. Which again we are seeing uh, quite a bit of trend where people want to go out and is part of entertainment, and the new players who are coming in. So you mentioned hotels. Yes, hotels. There is definitely since last 4 or 5 years. This year we have seen quite a bit of inquiries, interest in Indian hotels for obvious reasons because the occupancy levels have gone up, and in India the hotels are doing well. So there is an expansion happening in hotels. We are finally seeing more interest, but there are challenges in India. It's not easy to trade in hotels in India. So a lot of the hotel expansion is, greenfield, where people are, looking at land and doing development. There are of course a lot of interest from international operators who will come in, and as you know, the obvious names who have expanded. But you know companies like Taj also have been expanding quite a bit. The domestic players are quite active in India. I think at least for next 2 3 years there will be quite a bit of activity in the hotel rooms. But if you look at the actual, and I sorry don't have the exact number right now, but if you look at the number of rooms which are added, relatively small, right? So the interest is improved. I feel that in next 2 3 4 years there'll be a lot of new rooms which will be added. But same, if you look at our population and our size, the number of rooms which we are adding now is still, I would say, very is low compared to the size of the our country. But it is going to accelerate going forward. because the demand is quite robust.
Right. So let me ask you a more sort of business question now, Anshuman. So you talked about commercial real estate and leasing. You talked about logistics and industrial premises. We've talked about F&B retail and, of course, now hospitality. Between all of this, what's the what's the sector that sort of in a way is tracking the economy in growth, and what's perhaps maybe moving in a slightly different direction?
When you say tracking growth, are you talking within real estate? I mean, we are looking, the growth certainly in within real estate is in office and industrial are the two areas. Or are you talking about business segments?
No, from a business point of view, I mean, so if I were to be investing in,
Oh,
yeah,
business
yeah,
point of view. Yeah. So business point of view, we first of all, if again coming to the office, the big demand still comes from offshoring, outsourcing, and we are seeing financial services being the most active, and I think they will continue to. And the financial services, not only banking, but all other financial services you can think of, which is happening. I would say that is the most active right now. We are also seeing, activity in the pharma sector. Again, the scale is small but increasing. I think life sciences and pharma are two areas which are going to be very active going forward. For example, a lot of the international firms are setting up their labs here, again at a relatively small level, but has the potential to grow at a higher speed. So yeah, life sciences and pharma, healthcare, and financial services come to these come on top of my mind, which are quite active, and certainly, I mean, in India we are so behind. Every sector I feel is active, but these two come to my mind immediately.
right. So let me bring another aspect to this, and I think you talked about this as in the past as well. The ESG, the ESG mandate, and I mean, as I understood, almost 30% of new stock is ESG compliant, one way or the other, or LEED certified. First of all, is that a correct number? And what are you seeing the trends there? And what's the kind of investment that's going in to make these new buildings or new premises more ESG friendly? Or rather, what are companies asking for?
First of all, ESG certainly is in the forefront, and we are seeing more and more developments which are coming in are ESG, so-called ESG compliant. And the reason for that is because the occupiers in India, especially for office space, as majority of them are large multinational companies, they are more, I guess, conscious. But even the Indian companies now are not behind, and overall, because global legislation, Indian legislation, awareness, and occupiers demanding ESG compliance has led to most of the developments which are coming in are doing something or the other with being, being a green building or being ESG compliant. So this is and this is trend is increasing. In fact, I had that statistics that I think more than almost 60% of the new construction which is happening is going to be ESG compliant in some form or the other, which is a big number. And this clearly shows that there's both push from the demand side as well as legislation, and it's just awareness all put together is pushing developers to be more ESG compliant. And this trend is here to stay. It's only going to increase. And so you asked another question, investment, very difficult to put an investment number. That, but no doubt, more and more companies today and developers are following this. There's literally no choice. And sometimes when we are comparing buildings for large occupiers, certainly this is on forefront. When you're ticking the box, the ESG box is really, really important. People want to reduce their carbon footprint, and almost every company is committed to get net zero, including us, CBRE, by 2000. Whatever everybody has got dates till 2047 to be net zero. So that's really making a big difference. And I think in India, uh, even compared to many other countries in Asia, we are, I would say, more active or proactive in this area than I see in some of the other countries.
Right. Anshuman, if I were to go back to a point that you made earlier, and this is now really about the future, near or distant, you said Tokyo as one city is about 1 billion square feet, and India is about 800 million square feet for the whole country, roughly, for commercial real estate. Now, obviously, the opportunity is that we could have, let's say, 1 billion square
This
feet
is this
in.
is this is corporate grade.
Yeah, yeah. So
We will
yeah.
soon.
So when I when I say commercial, I meant corporate. So now, if we had to say that the opportunity, let's say in India, is at least 800 million square feet across 4 cities, or if not 5 cities, what would it take to get there?
Uh, the to get to 1 billion square feet, I think we will get there in next maybe 3 4 4 years, which is not far, if not
Yeah,
earlier.
no, I meant
It
one
depends
city.
on.
No, no, I meant one city. No, I meant, for example, Mumbai, can it go to 800 million square feet? Can a Delhi, Hyderabad, Bangalore,
Very difficult.
Chennai?
I think very difficult. So the largest office market in India is Bangalore, and which has crossed 200 million square feet. It's a bit more than that. Uh, I think no, I think that's a stretch, to be honest. And we do not have that kind of a demand and scale. I'm waiting for India to touch 1 billion. That itself will be an achievement. And like I mentioned earlier, I just sometimes in India people are over sort of we overstate things. So comparing this sort of tells us where we are still in the global perspective. But I also mentioned the flip side was when 30 years back, India entire the entire office supply in India, the corporate gate was about 35-36 million square feet. So for me, and I actually started at that time in real estate. So for me, going from 35 to 800 million itself is a big achievement. But just to keep our feet to the ground, it's good to compare that, look, we still have a long way to
Right.
go.
So you're saying that to imagine, let's say, a Mumbai having 800 million or Delhi, because obviously we know what these cities are like and how they're built out. It's something tough to imagine, and therefore no point projecting right now. But let me put that question a little differently.
And
Hmm?
and sorry to interrupt. One of the ways is that we'll have to enhance our infrastructure significantly in these cities, because anywhere else in the world, unfortunately, does not happen as much in India. Before you build an office building, you have to do a study of traffic study, for example. The developer is supposed to submit a traffic study and say, look, if you bring in this 400, 200,000 square feet building, what will it do to existing traffic? And then you have to do environment studies, this and that. Now, India, that does not happen. We already are, cities are fairly congested. So you'll have to really enhance the infrastructure, and we have to go vertical. So if we do these two things, of course, you need demand, but if we can get the infrastructure and go vertical, no doubt Bangalore and Mumbai have the potential to go up significantly as far as the office supply is concerned.
Okay, so Anshuman, we've touched upon 4 or 5 areas. You've talked about commercial and office real estate, which is growing, which has potential, but not as much as perhaps we would think when we compare to first world countries like you mentioned Japan and Tokyo. You've talked about the growth in the industrial and logistics space, where for various reasons, again, things are moving along quite well. You've also talked about retail, F&B, hospitality, again, growing very well, but those are obviously more services as opposed to, let's say, the industrial side of things. Now, my question is, as we look ahead, India is projecting to become a 5 trillion economy in a few years, 10 trillion later, and so on. Which of these is going to really contribute to that bigger growth number, or bigger India growth, the growth effort, so to speak?
Services sector will, of course, continue to be the main contributor, and that's why I feel both all the commercial real estate side will be big. However, one trend we touched upon is manufacturing. I still feel if we have to really have a proper growth, we cannot do without manufacturing. The good news is that finally, after so many years, we are seeing activity in the manufacturing sector. And this is only going to increase as consumption increases. But still, I feel the pace is not as much as it should be. China plus one, everybody talks about it. I also look after some of the other Asian countries like Vietnam, Thailand. And when I look at the numbers, Vietnam is actually, and Thailand and Cambodia, of course, these three countries in particular, are getting the maximum benefit of China plus one trend. And I just hope that, we can sort of push and accelerate more to get that manufacturing bit in India. Again, it is definitely, there's been improvement, there's been progress, and we clearly see on the ground more manufacturing companies looking at India than they have in the past. So it is. So the good news is that the trend is started, and I hope that this will, and I think it should accelerate, especially if the per capita income improves. So manufacturing will be a major contributor, no doubt. But certainly the services side is an important. And there's one more. Some of the other smaller things will add up. For example, data centers are going to be important. Residential will continue to expand. Of course, there are always trends of residential slowing down and coming up, but residential is still the largest segment of the real estate market. That whole construction in residential has a multiplier impact on the economy. And I feel that if the interest rates don't move too much and if the economy remains stable, the residential market will be a major contributor to the economy.